Morning, everybody who's joining online. We'll probably get here started here in about 2 minutes. We'll let people get started and join in online. We'll be going here in just a few minutes. Give everyone about 2 minutes to get settled in. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us this morning in person and virtual. Just take a few moments here to introduce myself. My name is Todd Underwood. I'm the Strategic Marketing Manager for SIFT. Do a little house cleaning here. First of all, if you have any questions today, please ask you to please hold them until the end. If you're joining us virtually, thanks for joining us virtually. There's a question and answer function at the bottom of your screen. Go ahead and put those questions there at the bottom and type them in. Again, we'll address those at the end. Just wanted to let you know a few things about SIFT for anyone who might be new and joining us for the first time. SIFT is part of the Ohio MEP, which is part of a nationwide public-private partnership with centers in all 50 states and Puerto Rico dedicated to serving small and mid-sized manufacturers. SIFT is one of 6 center affiliates in the state of Ohio. Our vision is to be a partner in solutions and innovation for food manufacturing and agribusinesses. We work to achieve this vision through a unique blend of direct services, a membership consortium made up of leading companies in the food space, and a vast network of resources and other partnerships. Our goal is to increase competitiveness and growth in Northwest Ohio and throughout the state. Agribusiness Forum is help us meet that mission by highlighting trends, new innovation, and providing education around these spaces once a month when we meet both virtually and in person. Today, it is my deep honor to introduce Lou Driever. He is a National Advisory Board member of the Farm Veteran Coalition, President, Ohio chapter of the Farm Veteran Coalition, Township Rep, Ohio Farm Bureau, member of Rural Action, Ohio Nutgrowers Association, Appalachian Beginning Forest Farmer Coalition. Lou manages a 4th generation row crop farm, beans, corn, and hay. He has a fruit and nut orchard, a shade crop agroforestry operation. He previously was a head grower at a hydroponic greenhouse and grow room, and he's actively involved in the Farm Bureau, the Farm Veteran Coalition, and Rural Action. He has an agricultural degree and is from the he has an agricultural degree from the University of Northwest Ohio. So I'm going to turn it over to Lou and let him speak. And please, again, if you have any questions, hold those to the end. And please, thank you for joining us this morning, Lou. I'm going to give you the screen over here to you so everyone can see it.
Good morning. Thank you very much for joining us for this presentation. As Todd mentioned, my name is Lou Driever. I'm the president of the Ohio chapter of the Farmer Veteran Coalition. And the Farmer Veteran Coalition has been around for about 14 years now. We have 30,000 members nationwide and 1,200 in the state of Ohio. We did not have a formal chapter per se in the state of Ohio. So that meant that we had 1,200 different people going 1,200 different directions. So it's taken about a 2-year process with the support of SIFT, Central State University, and Farm Credit. But about 2 months ago, we finally received a 501c3 authorization from the IRS, and we are now officially a nonprofit. And as such, we're able to provide more support for veterans who are transitioning to becoming farmers here in the state. The way that we do that is through a combination of mentorship. We also provide $3,000 to $5,000 Kickstarter grants, and we give away 5 Kubota tractors. Not too bad. 1 moment later. Nickel development.
Yeah. So you don't have beats. That's my fault. Now nobody can see that but you, but there you go.
Very good. Okay, and we are back. Life would not be fun. It would not be normal without a few technical challenges along the way. What I wanted to talk about here today is the process of becoming a farmer, because everybody, all of us, no matter what our background, at some point started to farm. And that applies to every farmer in history. At one point in time, you decide, you know, I think I want to figure out if I can plant something and make it grow. And that's a lengthy learning process. It's a lifelong learning process. And I wanted to share my experiences along the way and hopefully shortcut a few challenges that you may run into by doing so. So I grew up in Ohio, and I think my first exposure to farming was working on my grandmother's farm. She had a half-acre strawberry patch, which I had the privilege of weeding from the time I was 7, 8, 9, 10, and there's a lot of weeds in a strawberry patch, but that taught me a lot about attention to detail and just, you know, watching things grow and harvesting. Later, I began to do corn detasseling, and once I got a little bit older, buck hay, straw. Continued out west. While I was in the service, I lived on a farm, and we wound up running a few cattle out there. Later, I moved to Oregon, where we had a small truck farm. I came back to Ohio, and among my other jobs in Ohio, I was an airport manager. And people don't think about it, but every airport manager in the world is a farmer, because you've got all the overfly area. And for example, at Grimes Field in Urbana, Ohio, we had 240 acres of corn. And one of the things I realized was that the FAA isn't providing any kind of education to folks who are managing their airport to manage the revenue for that type of crop. So I got together with the local county extension agent. We had 8 airport managers come together, and we had a little class on how better to manage that aspect of our operations. And that taught me, you know, among other things, what a valuable resource the county extension agents are. And if you do outreach to them on virtually any topic, if they don't know the answer, they get a little bit miffed and they want to find out the answer. So they start going through their network, and they're very responsive about getting back. That's been my experience. Another avenue that I pursued while I was back here in Ohio was hydroponics. I went to work for an organization in Springfield, Ohio, that provided vocational rehabilitation for adults with developmental disabilities. And one of the opportunities that we presented them with was learning how to work in a hydroponic facility. So we had a hydroponic grow room and hydroponic greenhouse where we raised lettuce. And So we broke the task down into planting, nurturing, harvesting, and packing. And if you think about it, these are all projects that require a lot of attention to detail, rote processes. It's perfect for adults with developmental disabilities to work on. They're great workers once they learn the skill set, and it's easy for them to transition out into working in one of the commercial hydroponic operations that are becoming more popular here in Ohio. The big advantage with that is they like to work. They are delighted to come to work every day and really look forward to it. And they're very content with the compensation packages that are provided. So I think it's important to not overlook any subset of our available population when it comes to providing farming opportunities. And so all that having been said, I guess I need to circle back here a little bit to talk about what beginning farmers look like. Okay. And I'm going to use the context of veterans who are transitioning to farmers as my model. And the reason for that is you're basically looking at two different groups of people in that cohort. First of all, you have people who grew up on a farm, so they've got some experience. They get out of the service, they've got some access to land, some access to equipment, and they can kind of hit the ground running because they've got a good start. They've got momentum. Then you have the folks who aren't so lucky to have that background. So they're coming out of a suburban or urban background, or even a rural setting where they didn't have any exposure to farming or even gardening as they were growing up, but they've decided, I want to be a farmer. Okay, so you're starting from ground zero. Folks in that category are going to have, first of all, access to marginal land. So they know that to be a farmer, you've got to have land, at least some land. And here's this 28 acres that's for sale, and I don't know why it's so cheap, but I'm going to buy it because I can afford it. Well, after you buy it, you find out why it was so cheap. Because it's played out, it's needs some significant help to make it a productive piece of property. The second thing is they've got limited access to equipment. You know, you're picking a little bit here and there, and until you identify what your crop is going to be, you don't know what equipment you're going to need. The third thing, of course, is lack of knowledge. And that's the first one that needs to be rectified. So you've got a piece of property, you're not sure what'll grow here. Can I grow June berries? Can I grow chestnuts? You know, if you got 28 acres, you're probably not going to go into corn and soybean production. I mean, that's a safe bet. The primary goal would be to go into something where it's a niche market. You are going to be your primary labor force. You may have a couple other family members who are helping you, but you're not going to go out and hire 10 people to farm your 3 sections. You need to pick something small and identify a niche market that you're not competing against everyone else in. Once you have your soil analyzed, which I would encourage people to do before anything else, so you understand what the pH levels are, you understand what your soil types are, you understand how your water flow is going to work, then you can start refining the process and identify what crops will grow best here. And that's where you reach out to your extension agent. If you have, let's say, the classic 28 acres, what can you grow in that? Well, if you want to run sheep, you can run sheep. You can start a chicken operation for maybe $5,000–6,000. You can start a small apple orchard. You can do a nut orchard, but it all depends upon what your soil's like. Let's say you have 28 acres of woods. What are you going to do with that? Well, most of the woods back here in Ohio are overgrown by honeysuckle. So your first challenge would be, getting rid of the honeysuckle. Fortunately, Natural Resources and Conservation Service offers a grant program to get rid of the honeysuckle. They pay up to $550 per acre to get rid of honeysuckle, depending on how bad it is. So, based on my experience, okay, I had a 23-acre parcel in honeysuckle and another 17-acre parcel that was in honeysuckle. I hired a forestry head to come through and take out the big honeysuckle because some of it's 8 inches across at the base and 30 feet tall. I mean, this is not, nice little, neat little weeds. These are noxious, invasive pests. After that's been taken out, you need to go through a couple of times and hit it with Roundup 2 weeks apart. After you've done that, and you've gotten the honeysuckle taken out, usually your forester will walk through, sign off on it, and you can get compensation for the expenses that you incurred at that point. And now you have a woodlot that's useful. Now, that's where it becomes interesting because we have woodlots all over the state that are not being used. People don't use woodlots very much anymore for fence posts. And a lot of people don't even use them for firewood. But you're paying property taxes on that woodlot. You need to make it pay its way because every inch of your farm you are taxed on. And if you're taxed on it, that piece of property's got to pay its way. So how can you make a woodlot pay its way? Well, there's a couple of different ways. One is if you're supportive of hunting, you can go through and replace the honeysuckle in the understory with pawpaws, hazelnuts, persimmon, hop hornbeam, other trees that grow about 30 feet tall that are shade tolerant. And what all those plants have in common is that they attract deer. Once you've attracted the deer to your parcel, now you can rent that out for hunting rights and generate enough revenue, hopefully, to cover your property taxes. That helps the property pay its own way. But while it's nice to have the property pay its own way, it's even better to make a profit. One of the activities I have is raising shade crops. And the most familiar of those is ginseng, of course. And if you've watched Appalachian Outlaws, then you know all the perils of raising ginseng. There are a number of other shade crops, though, that are very profitable and actually much easier to grow than ginseng. For example, goldenseal is a topical antibiotic. It only takes 4 years to grow as opposed to 7 years for ginseng. And currently on the German market, it's going for $70 a pound. So let's just talk about that narrowly and briefly. If you have a couple of kids that are coming up, maybe 10, 11, 12, and you're going, how am I going to pay for their college? Take an acre of your woodlot, prep it, have them planted in goldenseal. Plant a 1/4 acre each year, and they take care of it as it's growing. After 4 years, when they're ready to go to college, they can start harvesting those 1/4 acres of goldenseal. And at $70 a pound, that covers a significant chunk, if not all, of their tuition. And so they've gotten their work ethic developed. They've learned about plants. You've replaced an invasive pest in the environment. You're nurturing endangered indigenous plants and providing a medicinal herb for people to help them get better. Plus your kid gets to go to school. Not a bad combination package there. Okay. So that's one different approach that you can take to a niche crop. If you're looking at an orchard approach, there are a bunch of people out there who are doing apple orchards right now. A bunch of people with pears, with other popular fruits. Pardon me. There are less common fruits and nuts that can be grown. Now, fruits, you're looking at about a 4-year lead time before you're actually producing commercially. Nuts, you're probably looking at 7. So you have to have a day job while you plant your orchard. On the plus side, after you plant your orchard, there's not a whole lot of work until it's actually producing. You've got to mow the grass, you've got to irrigate it, but there's not a lot of aggressive pruning. You don't have to worry about harvesting. So you can keep your day job, which covers the cost of the land, until the orchard comes on and actually starts compensating you for the investment. Some niche type crops to consider. One that I'm growing is called hicans, the cross between hickories and pecans. And you can grow out and with any nut or any fruit, grow it for the nut and grow it for the fruit. But the other thing you can do is grow varieties. So I have 14 different varieties of hicans. What this allows me to do is in future, I'll be able to graft new trees. And in addition to selling the nuts, I can sell the grafted varieties of the trees for $35, $40 a piece, which from a time investment is probably going to work out to be even more profitable than selling the nuts themselves. At the minimum, it gives you 2 possible lines of approach. And the important thing to do is to spread your risk across different crops. You don't know which crop is going to be worth more in a particular year and which one's going to be less, how the weather is going to affect it. Another approach with an orchard setup is to do what's called alley cropping. Alley cropping is you have your trees planted, and in between the trees is an alley. Let's say it's 40 feet wide, as in a nut orchard. You can grow any number of different plants in there. It escapes me right now. I was talking with a fellow down in Athens here a couple of weeks ago, but he was growing a grain crop. I'm sorry, I can't remember. Badger, if you're watching, maybe you'll sing out. But the grain crop that you grow can be harvested, and then you can use that in the interim. So you're actually in the 7 years that you're waiting for your nuts to come on, you're harvesting the grain that grows in between the rows of trees, and that helps cover and offset your taxes in the interim. And again, like I say, you got to pay taxes on your whole property, so make sure that it covers it. Other approaches that people have is say, I only got 2 acres. What am I going to do? Well, with 2 acres, you're very limited. You're going to be needing to do some labor-intensive crops that other people don't want to do to be able to hit that niche market to generate revenue and cover your costs. One example might be raising gourmet garlic. There's a fellow down near Springfield who raises 30 different types of gourmet garlic on 1.5 acres. And he is very self-sufficient. He goes to farmers market. He has a CSA arrangement. He covers his costs, makes a profit, and is a very successful farmer on 1.5 acres. He puts in a lot of hours. Okay. If you're willing to do that and you target the right niche crop, then it's possible for you to, with only 1.5 acres, to be able to succeed. You say, well, that's great, but I live in the city. Now, what am I going to do? Okay. Well, there's lots of opportunities there too. In the city, there's often brownfield developments. So you've got a dilapidated factory building that nobody wants. It's an eyesore. They want to get rid of it and they'll sell it to you for $1. Okay. There's a couple of options with that. It's already got power, it's already got light, and it's already got water. And it's located probably near a bunch of unemployed people who would like to have a job. So that's an area that you could go into, retrofit, and turn into a hydroponic grow room, raising lettuce, tomatoes, strawberries. And now what you're doing now is you're creating fresh food in the middle of a food desert. You can hire people who are within walking distance, who are happy to, learn the skill set to work in a hydroponic environment. And the other good thing too is people normally don't break in to a building to rob strawberries, lettuce, tomatoes. So it's a lower risk venture than going in there with a different approach. Another possible thing to do with the brownfield structure is to raise mushrooms. I think most people are familiar with shiitake mushrooms. You drill holes in oak logs and inject the spores, seal them with wax, set the log to one side, get your next log. You hose them down every once in a while and turn them. And in about, I think it's 9 months or so, you can start harvesting. Well, if you've got a brownfield structure that is fairly dilapidated, you can do all that indoors. You've got a climate controlled, as far as, relatively climate controlled without adding heat structure. Putting the water that you're going to need to spray on them isn't really going to damage the structure much more than it already is. And after 4 or 5 years, you're going to have accumulated humidity issues to the point where you are going to need to bulldoze the structure. But by that point in time, after 4 or 5 years of constant, continual harvesting of mushrooms, you've paid for that and much, much more besides. So that's an approach to take in a purely urban setting. I haven't talked too much about animals, and that's partly due to my own predilections there. I've raised cattle, goats, chickens, and my experience is when you raise animals, you are with the animals 24/7. You can leave for 8 to 10 to 12 hours, but you need to come back to take care of your animals. And I like to have a little bit longer tether than that. That being said, I mentioned earlier that we give away $3,000 to $5,000 Kickstarter grants with Farmer Veteran Coalition, and you can get a lot of chickens for $5,000. Or you can take an existing barn structure, refurb it for $5,000 to make a very nice chicken run. The whole idea is that with any grant is that it doesn't cover the whole cost of the exercise. It's to help you accomplish things that otherwise you wouldn't be able to do. And that's true for the wide range of grants that are out there. And I want to encourage folks to look at the attra.org site. And that site is, it lists all the farming grants in the country. And it lists them in the order that they need to be applied for. So the grants that application is due for tomorrow is listed first. The one that's the application is due in 2 weeks is down a little bit. If it's due in 2 months, it's further down on the page. You can look at the grant requirements and say, I want to apply for that one. I'm not qualified for that one. This one looks good, and pick which ones you want to apply for. I'm currently batting about 25% on the grants that I apply for. And that's not bad. If you stop and think, it might take you 10 to 12 hours to write up a grant proposal. And in return for that 10 to 12 hours that you spend on your proposal, you have the potential income of what, $5,000, $30,000 or more. It's a very prudent thing to apply for grants. And again, your county extension agent will be aware of them. The Natural Resources and Conservation Service folks will also be aware of them. There are a ton of grants out there for forestry. There are many grants out there for socially disadvantaged farmers. Okay, so socially disadvantaged farmers includes veterans, people of color, handicapped folks, a huge range of people, and I would encourage you to look into those opportunities as well. You know, the USDA wants to have a successful agricultural economy in the United States. To do that, they're very happy to reach out, provide guidance, help people, and let them know about what resources are available so that they can become more successful farmers. We all know it's very easy to become an unsuccessful farmer. Our goal is to make you a successful one. One of the things that I haven't talked about, I'll just throw a couple random things out there to try to cover the last couple of bases. If you have a pond, and most farms have a pond of some size, there's a range of different aquaculture opportunities there. Or conversely, you can grow aquatic plants, which is a small niche market that you're not competing against big commercial farmers in. An example of that might be wild rice. Once you harvest wild rice and plant it, you're done. It's going to come back year after year after year, and all you have to do is go out and harvest it. It takes almost no upkeep. So there's a range of opportunities out there, a range of niche markets, whether it's Scottish cattle or a particular variety of long-eared goat, or an unusual crop like June berries that most people have not considered growing, pawpaws. Look for the niche crops where you're not competing against the big farmer who's got 6 sections of corn. You're never going to win there. You need to find something small that you can do with your own labor. Once you've identified your crop, narrowly define what the minimal equipment is that you need to successfully plant, nurture, harvest, and process that crop. And then don't hesitate to look on Craigslist for equipment. Don't hesitate to look for the auctions that are coming up, because they're out there every weekend as farmers who are averaging 50 years plus in the United States, as they retire and go out of business, they've got all the stuff they've collected through the years, and they might just have that gem that you need. So there's a few thoughts on getting started in farming. I'm thinking that you may have some questions, and so given the opportunity, I'd love to answer them for you. Any questions here in the room?
What's your advice for finding those niche markets?
For finding markets, okay. You need to look at what your crop is. The most common market that people have is the local farmers market. And the challenge with that is that normally only runs during the summer. And if you have a crop that doesn't, that only is harvested in the fall, or conversely, a hydroponic crop that grows year round, the farmer's market may not be a good fit. Another option is community sales, where you have people who sign up and they're going to take a basket of X each week or each month, and you supply a part of that basket based on what you're growing in that particular season. The third thing, and I'd really like to encourage people to consider this, is a program that the Ohio Food Bank Association has in collaboration with the Ohio Department of Agriculture. And the Ohio Department of Agriculture needs to support the local food banks. So they've made arrangements to purchase food from farmers at farm gate prices and provide that to the local food banks, the 12 major food banks here in the state. Now, a lot of farmers, if you have excess food, you donate it to the food bank anyway. And it's great to get a tax credit, and it's, morally right to do it. But it's absolutely wonderful to actually get paid for it as opposed to a tax credit. And there's no long-term contract. The local Ohio Department of Agriculture folks can hook you up with the right contacts, or the local food bank folks, because they all know about the program too. Got a number of people with the Farmer Veteran Coalition who are participating in the program. And the big advantage of this is, let's say that you've done your business plan. And I need to point out that if you're raising a crop, you better figure out where you're going to sell it before you put that first seed in the ground, because otherwise it's too late. And so if you're planning to raise, let's say, hydroponic tomatoes, just to pick a topic, and you say, I'm going to sell 30% at the farmer's market and 40% through CES, that's 70% of my crop, and I'm going to sell 30% to the food banks. Well, on a given week, you may sell a little bit more at farmer's market or a little bit less. So depending on how your market develops for that particular week, you may have more or less food for the food bank. But the plus side is you now have 100% of your produce sold. You're not sitting there going, well, I got this 5% that isn't going to make it, so I got to throw it away. So when you identify your marketing plan, make sure that you try to cover the bases so that you've got all 100% pre-sold, or at least pre-marketed. Okay, thank you.
What are some of the challenges you're facing? This is very important information you're sharing. What are the challenges you're facing getting your message, getting this information out there, or getting this to the people who need to hear it?
Okay, what are the challenges getting the information out there to the folks who need it? Rural communities are by their nature isolated. And so you're not living next door to one another. As we all know, newspapers don't really provide very much information anymore. They're, going by the boards. Going on a Facebook group is helpful, but it's not local. And the same thing's true for most social media. I think the best way to try to get information out about improved farming techniques, good ways to write business plans, grant opportunities, is through a combination of physical and virtual webinars and workshops. By doing that, you have the opportunity to have the give and take, so people can ask questions. And it's easier to make the information about the available. It's easier to tell people about the availability of information via the net. But in person, when you're sitting there with the other folks, topics, serendipity topics come up that would never occur in a webinar. And you can go back and forth. There's a guy 2 tables over that knows everything about cattle. There's a guy 2 tables over who can tell you everything you wanted to know about how to adjust pH levels using different types of soil additives. You can learn that in person more conveniently than you can in an electronic format where everything's really pretty segmented.
Is there a good website for finding the grants?
A good website?
Yes, for finding grants.
For finding grants. Okay, as I said, the attra.org website has been very helpful for me. If you are serious about grants, it costs about $200, I believe, to join Ohio Grant Watch, which specializes in all the grants available in the state of Ohio. So you're going to have to wade through a ton of grants that are not agriculturally related. But at the same time, you're going to find some local grants that pop up that otherwise wouldn't be there. I would suggest if you have time and are seriously interested, is to Google private foundations in Ohio that give grants. And you'll come up with a whole bunch of organizations like the Covering Foundation or the Ohio Invasive Pest Council, a bunch of smaller groups, whether they're family trusts or corporate trusts that give away grants that don't actually make it to the big picture stuff. And they're not all going to be agriculturally related. A tremendous number are related to providing education benefits for underserved children. Well, you can provide education in horticulture on your farm. You can train them in gardening. You can train them in hydroponics. I continue to stress the hydroponics because that's a hot flavor of the month kind of item right now with the government. And so working that into your grant proposals gives you a greater possibility of approval. Another big hot topic right now with the government is sustainable agriculture and restorative agriculture. So my farm, our family farm, has been farmed since the last Civil War. And so after, close to 130 years of farming, land is getting kind of played out. And so learning how to restore that land to increase productivity, for example, through the application of biochar, is a wonderful way to do that. And there is currently a grant out there from a company who is providing biochar to farmers who are in the Mississippi Basin, which includes about the southern 25% of the counties in Ohio, starting from the Ohio River going north. And there's an upcoming grant opportunity coming out next year that will provide the same biochar support to the northern 22 counties in Ohio. And those are the counties that are in the Lake Erie Basin. So between those two, you've probably got about half the state covered. And this biochar grant is free biochar with application and delivery included. And not a bad way to improve your grant, improve your land, and especially when you get it for free. So, any additional questions?
I might have a suggestion that on this site, there's a wonderful opportunity for somebody to start up in gardening. We have plots at the Agricultural Incubator Foundation site here that where we're located that with water, and they can start up a garden very reasonable rates here.
Okay, that's wonderful. So what he said was that here at NOC, where we're currently broadcasting from, there are plots available for gardens where people can come, start a garden, and learn how to garden from scratch. And by looking at your neighbor's garden, you can learn some finer points. In other words, why did my tomatoes die and their tomatoes didn't die? You can ask your neighbor. You can get mentorship, and it's a great way to break into farming, especially if you have zero access to land. If you're an apartment dweller and you don't even have a little parcel to work with, here's the way to learn. You can get in, get your hands dirty, make your mistakes, and that's okay, because that's how we all work. Okay, thank you.
One last question. If you're not a farmer or not a veteran, but you believe in the mission, what are some ways people can support your mission? Are there ways people can help support you if they're not a farmer or a veteran but want to help?
Okay. Folks that would like to support the mission that aren't currently a farmer and aren't currently a veteran, I would say, first of all, remember, you can always rectify becoming a farmer. It's never too late to start. And I think that you can enlist up to age 35 now. So we'll just throw that one on the table for fun. That being said, farmvetco.org. That's FARMVETCO.org is our national website. And they are delighted to accept any donations there. The donations can be made and earmarked for the Ohio chapter, and they will make their way back here. If you want to earmark them for the Montana chapter or the Hawaii chapter, that's perfectly fine. Like I say, we've got about 30,000 members nationwide. In Maui, which is currently on fire, we've got about 30 farmers on the island. And I know that I don't think that their farms are doing so good right now. So certainly we need to remember those who are less fortunate than ourselves and work to help all of us move forward together so that together we can be successful. Okay. Okay. Well, I'd like to thank you very much for listening to my monologue. And, look forward to seeing you again in future. Now, Farm Science Review, 19th through the 21st in London, Ohio. We will be there at the Central State University Pavilion, and that's located in the northwest corner of the site. If you are familiar with where the school buses deliver and drop off, that's where we're going to be. And we're giving away a 3-point auger there with a 12-inch bit. Perfect for putting your orchard in, perfect for planting fence posts, a great beginning farmer's tool. If you've already got 3 in your barn, you can give it to your nephew or your brother-in-law. So it's a free door prize. So come on down, feel free to enter. Look forward to seeing you there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lou. We want to thank everybody for joining online. This recording will be available on our YouTube channel, so don't forget to subscribe. And we want to thank everyone for joining. And we'll be sending some information out about next month's Ag Forum here, probably today and tomorrow. And we look forward to seeing you all next week. And we just want to say again, thank you so much to Mr. Lou Driever. This was a really fascinating and important conversation that we had today. And thank you all for coming in person and online. We look forward to seeing you next month. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you very much.